In this video, we'll see how every Champions League club got its name. We'll dig the origin of each name to find out why they are called like that. Starting with Arsenal, that was named like that because it was founded by munition workers of an armaments factory that was called Royal Arsenal in London. That's why there's a cannon on the logo. And we're gonna cover every 36 Champions League clubs by alphabetical order, from Arsenal to Young Boys. Now the next club is also from England, Aston Villa, that was founded in 1874 by members of a chapel called Aston Villa Wesleyan Chapel. Aston is the name of the area they were located in Birmingham, coming from the Old English Easton or Eastern Settlement, while Villa comes from Villa Cross, the location of that chapel. Now leaving England, let's go to an Italian club, Atalanta. This club from the city of Bergamo was named after a Greek mythology heroine with the same name, Atalanta, a renowned huntress, figure of strength, speed and independence. Still on letter A, we arrive at Atletico Madrid, that actually has this name because of another Spanish club, Athletic Club Bilbao. Atletico Madrid was founded by fans of that club from Bilbao, so it started as Athletic Club Madrid, literally a copy of it. But where does the word Madrid come from? It's very interesting, but we will see later when we get to their rival. Moving on, we arrive at FC Barcelona, that as the name suggests, comes from the city of Barcelona, but the name itself is very ancient. One theory for the name is that the city was founded by a man called Hamilcar Barca, who in honor of his family named the city Barcino. Then the Romans started calling it Colonia Barcino. From there, the name evolved until it became Barcelona as we know today. We've already covered 5 clubs. Let's continue going one by one. Now after Barcelona, we arrive at a German team, Bayer Leverkusen, that as you can see, literally has the name of a pharmaceutical company. The reason for that comes from its foundation. The club was actually created by workers of the Bayer company in 1904, giving birth to Bayer 04. I thought that they only got this name after a partnership with the company. But no, it comes from the roots of the club. Meanwhile, Leverkusen is the name of the city. But unlike Barcelona, Leverkusen is a much newer one, named after a 19th century chemist called Karl Leverkus. So the club actually is the name of a pharmaceutical company and the name of a chemist. Also, many confuse Bayer with Bayern, but both names have nothing to do with each other. Bayern Munich is quite a simple name. Bayern means Bavaria, the region in Germany, while Munich is the name of the city. But Munich comes from the Old German, that can be translated to monks. That's why there's a monk on the city's flag. Now still on letter B, we arrive at Benfica, that actually comes from the union of 2 clubs, Sport Lisboa and Sport Clube de Benfica. Lisboa is the capital of Portugal, where there are neighborhoods named Benfica, but the actual origin of the name isn't certain. One theory is that it comes from the Arabic benefic, meaning good place. Meanwhile, Bologna from Italy is also named after its city. The main theory is that the name comes from the Old Gaulish word bona, meaning foundation or settlement. From there, Bona became Bologna in Latin and later Bologna. But they are not the only club with Latin origins. One of these clubs is Borussia Dortmund, believe it or not. Actually, when the club was created, the founders were inspired by a beer that existed at the time called Borussia beer. But Borussia isn't a made-up name, it's the Latin word for Prussia. And no, it's not misspelled. Prussia was a country that existed in what is now most of Germany. Meanwhile, Dortmund is the name of the city, which in the Middle Ages was called Trotmunda. One interpretation is that Trot referred to a swamp, while Mund meant protection or a safe area. Over time, Trotmunda became Dortmund. Now we've covered the first 10 clubs. Let's continue in alphabetical order. But before moving on to letter C, we have the first French club of the video, Brest, that also takes the name from its city. But the origin of the name isn't agreed upon. One theory is that it comes from the Breton phrase Begarest, which means the tip of the castle. Now talking about castles, we arrive in Scotland with Celtic Football Club, that as the name suggests, it's in honor of the Celtic people. They were people from Europe who lived in various parts of the continent more than 2000 years ago. Celtic FC is one of the only clubs that isn't named after a city. But Club Brugge is. This team has the same name as its city, located in north of Belgium. The name of this city is pretty straightforward. It comes from the Old Dutch Brugge, sorry for mispronouncing it, which literally means bridge. Now the next club is not from Belgium, but Croatia, Dinamo Zagreb. This is the biggest club of its country, winning the league title every year, but they only got their name in the 1940s. At the time, Croatia was part of Yugoslavia, which after the 40s was heavily influenced by the Soviet Union. So Dinamo was a very common name in the Soviet Union, derived from the Greek word dynamis, meaning strength or power. Meanwhile, Zagreb is the name of the city, the capital of Croatia, but the origin of it is less clear. One theory is that it comes from the word Zagreb, meaning to scoop or to dig. Now the next club doesn't have the name of its city, but rather from its neighborhood, Feyenoord. In the city of Rotterdam, there's a neighborhood called Feyenoord. The reason for that is, back in the 15th century, a man named Feye gave his own name to an old dam in the area, or oord in Old Dutch. Putting together, it became Feyenoord, Feyenoord. But people from outside of the Netherlands didn't know how to pronounce the IJ, so in 1974 they changed to Feyenoord with a Y. Leaving the Netherlands, we go back to Spain to talk about the origin of Girona's name. Like many teams in this video, it shares the name of its city, which is located in Catalonia. Way back in the Roman era, the city was called Girunda. One theory suggests that Gir meant something like river or water, so with time Girunda became Girona, or Girona. Now let's see the origin of a very interesting name, Inter Milan, that has a story tied to its rival. In the early 1900s, AC Milan already existed, but they only allowed Italian players on the team. That made some people upset, arguing that foreign players should also be accepted. This disagreement caused a split, so those players left to form their own club, a team that would also accept foreigners called Football Club Internazionale, literally meaning international. From there, the rivalry began. But as for the origin of the name Milan, we'll see that later. Speaking of Italian teams, we arrive at Serie A's biggest winner, Juventus, that has a name directly coming from Latin. The club was founded by young students of a school in Turin. So guess what is youth in Latin? Juventus. So Juventus is literally just youth. Now we've reached the halfway point. We still have Liverpool, Real Madrid, Milan and much more. So let's go to the next ones. Continuing, we arrived at a French club, Lille, that just like most teams is named after its city. This city in northern France was founded in an area surrounded by water and marshes, so it was named Island, which in Old French was Lisle. Over time, the name evolved into what we know today, Lille, so the name means island. The next club is also named after its city, Liverpool, one of the greatest teams in England, with a name that references water. It comes from the Old English word Liverpool. Liver meant muddy water and pool meant, well, a pool. So it literally translates to pool with muddy water. Moving on in alphabetical order, right after Liverpool, we reach Manchester City, that carries the identity of its city. But where does this name come from? So in Roman times, the city was called Mamucium, meaning place on a brass-like hill, in reference to where the original fort was located. Over time, the name evolved, Mamesiastre and finally Manchester. Side note, Manchester became only the second European city to have two Champions League winning clubs. The first one was Milano, home to Inter and AC Milan. We've already seen why Inter is called like that, so now let's go to their rival. Well, AC literally means football association, while the word Milan has very ancient roots. The city was founded by the Celts under the name Mediolanon, meaning in the middle of the plain. Later, the Romans called it Mediolanum, holding the same meaning. So eventually from Mediolanum it became Milano. Now after Milan, Monaco is the only club named after its country. Yeah, that's not a city, but rather an independent country, but just one professional club. So the name of the country actually comes from the Greek. In the past, the Greeks referred to this land that is Monaco today as Monoikos, meaning single house. Over time, Monoikos became Monaco. Still in the Ligue 1, we reach Paris Saint-Germain. That has this longer name because it came from the merger of two clubs, Paris FC and Stade Saint-Germain. These two clubs came together in 1970. So Saint-Germain actually comes from the name of a city next to Paris, Saint-Germain-en-Laye, named in honor of a saint called Germain, who lived in the 9th century. Meanwhile, Paris comes from an ancient tribe that lived in the region called the Parisii. Now after PSG, we reach PSV, that is an acronym for Philips Sportvereniging, or in English, Philips Sports Association. If you think that Philips refers to the electronics brand, you're right. The club was founded in the early 20th century by workers at the Philips factory. Just like the club, the company was founded in Eindhoven. Interesting how it carries its original name after so many years. So the next club also comes from a company, RB Leipzig. But contrary to what many people think, RB doesn't stand for Red Bull. It actually means Rasenballsport, or lawn ball sports in English. There's a rule in Bundesliga that clubs cannot have a company's name, unless the company sponsors the club for over 20 years. So they had to work around the rule to keep the RB in the name. Meanwhile, the name Leipzig comes from a tree. The ancient Slavs of the region called this tree Lipa, which inspired the name of the city. Over time, it evolved into Leipzig as we know today. But while Leipzig had to adapt its name, their brothers, Red Bull Salzburg, had no such issues. In Austria, there is no restriction on using a company's name, allowing them to keep the Red Bull identity. Meanwhile, Salzburg is the name of the city, so the name Salzburg is a combination of two words, Salz and Burg, which literally translates to salt and fortress. This refers to the castle and the boats that transported salt along the river in the past. Salzburg is playing the Champions League every year now, but never had a chance on going far. Meanwhile, the next club on the list is simply the greatest European winner with 15 titles, Real Madrid. But what many people don't know is that Real Madrid actually didn't start with this name. It was founded as just Madrid Football Club. Until in 1920, the King Alfonso XIII granted a royal title to the club, adding the name Real and the crown to the crest, so it became Real Madrid. Now let's see where the word Madrid came from. So as you know, it's the capital of Spain, but the name actually comes from the Arabic. The city was founded in the 9th century by a guy named Emir Muhammad I. At the time, the region had many springs, so he named it Madrid, meaning spring or fountain. Then eventually Madrid became Madrid. That's one of the main theories. Continuing, we arrive in Serbia to reach Red Star, where the club's origin dates back to the socialist era of Eastern Europe. In 1945, in the former Yugoslavia, there was a group of students that formed a sports society, naming it Red Star. There were discussions if it should be called Blue Star, People's Star, or even Stalin, but it ended up being Red Star. On top of that, in 1945, Yugoslavia adopted a socialist government that included a red star on the flag. Another club influenced by this period was Shakhtar Donetsk. Founded in 1936 in the Soviet Union, Shakhtar was associated with coal miners. The name Shakhtar literally means coal miner. That's why the club's crest featured two mining tools. At the time, mining was the economic backbone of the Donetsk region, so Shakhtar Donetsk was a club that represented the workers there. Continuing, we reach a club from Slovakia, Slovan Bratislava. Slovan means the Slavic people, while Bratislava is the capital. Its name originates from a medieval settlement called Braslev's Castle. Next is Sparta Prague, the largest club in the Czech Republic. It was named after the ancient Greek city of Sparta, whose warriors were known for their strength and resilience. Meanwhile, Prague comes from the old Slavic word pra, meaning rapid, representing the location where the city was originally founded. Leaving the Czech Republic, we return to Portugal, where we find Sporting. But this time the name is quite straightforward. It literally means sporting club. The next club is a lesser known one, Sturm Graz. If you're from Austria, you know what it means, but Graz is the city where the club was founded, while Sturm literally means storm in German, symbolizing strength and intensity. Now speaking of German, we reach Stuttgart, a club that's also named after its city. The city of Stuttgart was founded in the 10th century as a place to breed war horses, so it was originally named Stadtfarm, or in Old German, Stuttgarten. Sorry for my pronunciation, but that's where the name came from. Now we've reached the last club, Young Boys from Switzerland, but the reason behind the name is quite peculiar. At the end of the 19th century, one of Switzerland's best clubs was the Old Boys, so a group of students wanted to rival them, so they created a counterpart, named Young Boys, believe it or not. So what do you think of this video? If you enjoyed it, I think you're gonna like this one too. So thank you and bye.